So they're going to be reacting to the Fed or Fred just pumping out money, just printing it out. They're behind like there's no tomorrow. So let's just get straight into the vid.
The U.S. debt crisis is just getting worse. And honestly, I don't know what you want to call it. Greed, corruption,
Corruption
mismanagement,
would be a stretch, though.
But as I've covered in my Great Meltdown
Because that's been present throughout
the government's
for
debt
centuries,
crisis and all
first,
the money
second, third
printing
world,
caused the
medieval
U.S.
world,
dollar to
whatever.
lose its reserve currency status. So I just want to be very clear about this. People will continue to use the U.S. dollar for
But that doesn't negate corruption, so I'm wrong there. But you get what I mean.
transactions. However, it's not going to be the reserve assets of the world. And de-dollarization, it's a process. It's not an event. In today's video, we're focusing on President Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill, which has now been signed into law.
A very idiotic
So
bill.
unfortunately, this bill is going to make the debt crisis even worse. And rather than trying to
The guy
solve
who
the
went
problem,
bankrupt 6-7 times.
basically the politicians are adding
in
fuel to
management
the fire.
of money.
I want to show
Why
you.
these has a huge
Now, I just want to
influence
start with
on it.
this. I know that some people are very happy about certain items within this bill. No tax on tips, no tax on overtime, among other things. And if you qualify to take advantage of those things, then I'm very happy for you.
Very true.
However, you have to realize
it's the
that
overarching
overall,
picture.
this is just going to make the situation worse. It's like dropping quarters to pick up pennies. So let me explain. The best way I can put it is just think about the last stimulus
if it's
package,
for like financial
was a
literacy,
$1,200 stimulus check
illiteracy, it might make sense
worth
to
it in exchange for how much the cost of housing, food, insurance, how everything just skyrocketed up. And I would say, well, it's just my opinion, I would say no. We got the crumbs and we got stuck with the cost of living inflation.
You know,
And
I
the
mean, crumbs can
uber-wealthy
feed you
people,
like a full-on
They
diet,
got the
I
whole
guess.
pie and they benefited from financial asset inflation. Now, this One Big Beautiful Bill is just more of the same thing.
One big
So the
terrible
Congressional
bill.
Budget Office, the CBO, says that this One Big Beautiful Bill is going to add $3.4 trillion to the deficit over the next 10 years, which I've outlined in red.
CIA,
Now, I wanna tell you this.
FBI,
If you're thinking,
President,
okay,
Congress doing their
$3.4
job.
trillion
Yep,
added to the
right.
deficit over the next 10 years. That's going to break down to $340 billion more deficit per year.
Truly,
which is bad,
truly generational.
But that's not horrible, relatively speaking. But the thing is that this deficit, it's front loaded. So look at next year, 2026. This bill is expected to add $500 billion to our deficit next year. That is huge. And take a look at 2027. It's going to add over $600 billion to our deficit that year. And it's not going to be much better in 2028. Now, I want to show you this video clip of Senator Rand Paul, who's a Republican, speaking out against this One Big Beautiful Bill.
Obviously,
So
the
please take a look.
prospects right now are looking very bleak.
You know, the big, not so beautiful bill is passed now. The one thing that's for certain is that next year the deficit will be bigger than this year. The bill includes over
basic
$500
math,
billion
who
in
would've thought?
spending. And at the end, to get the vote of the Alaska senator, billions and billions and billions more were added. At least $50 billion was added for hospital fund in the end.
Are we talking
We don't
about
have
going
any
up
of
or
that
going
money.
down?
All of it's borrowed.
But
All of that
obviously, this
spending
is
will have
pretty
to be
bad.
borrowed. And this bill will lead to a much greater deficit over time. And I don't believe it's fiscally responsible.
A man who
Now,
went
I want to show you
bankrupt by
this.
these 5
The federal
7
government
times
is now in debt
isn't
for
management of money.
$37 trillion. This
Perfect.
doesn't even include the unfunded liabilities.
All right, let's just pause it real quick. National debt in the trillions. Wow. Debt per citizen. The Dogecoin. Are you serious?
Okay, so here's what's going to happen this year. The U.S. government's going to collect about $5 trillion in taxes, and the U.S. government's going to spend about $7 trillion, which means that the government's going to borrow the $2 trillion difference. In other words, the government's going to go deeper into debt by $2 trillion this year. And now with the passage of this bill, the situation is just going to get worse.
I'm pretty sure
next
even
year.
with past
And
history of
as
them
the government
borrowing, this
accumulates
one
more
is
debt, then the
obviously a
government's
bit
gonna have
more
to pay more in
like
interest.
extreme for like.
And that's going to mean
the
more of our
upcoming
tax
future.
dollars going to be spent on interest rather than
Yeah,
other
like, as you
productive
can see on
things,
the chart.
education, healthcare, etc. So those orange segments, they show how much more interest that we're going to be paying each year because of the passage of this bill. So it may
The
not
Fed
seem
was
like a
just like printing out
huge
more money
impact, but
hopefully,
you have to
right?
remember that this is just from a single bill.
Which would be very,
I mean,
very positive.
What else is the government going to
I'm
have to
obviously
borrow
being
money for
sarcastic.
in the future? You know, if there's a recession, then we're going to have to borrow money to spend on stimulus. If there's financial problems, then we're going to have to spend money on bailouts. If there's a war, you know, that costs money too. Now, to be fair, I want to show you
always
this.
been
President Trump and the
exceptional
White House are
always,
saying that this
apparently.
one big beautiful bill will decrease the deficit,
Taking from
decrease
schools
the national
and like
debt,
public
and will
funding, just
unleash
like throw it
economic
all
growth.
into wars. So you go for
I'm
savings,
not convinced, but that's just my opinion.
which they actually have
and
done
this
before
is
for
their
some
opinion.
reason, which is just ridiculous.
But then this begs the question, if this bill is going to decrease the deficit and national debt, then why does this one big beautiful bill need to raise the debt ceiling by $5 trillion? I would say that just common sense and realistically speaking is because everybody knows that this bill is not going to decrease the deficit or the national debt. Now, I know that people are going to say that Trump's tariffs are bringing in a lot of money. So I'm showing you this to give you the full
who's
picture.
saying that?
And it is true. Trump's tariffs are bringing in more money,
But it's a double-edged
as you can
sword.
clearly see. So this is a monthly chart of tariff revenue for the U.S. governments. And it has spiked up. So for the month of June, the U.S. government collected $28 billion in tariff revenue. And I agree, that is a lot. At that rate, it's $336 billion a year. But you have to remember that the U.S. government's going to spend $7 trillion this year. So $336 billion of tariff
That's what I
revenue,
mean. Like it's very
if that
like
happens,
back-ended.
that is only 4.8%
Because
of what
the
the
way
government
it was like
spent.
a sudden like onset.
And you have to remember
of just,
that
like,
the deficit this year is going to be $2 trillion.
onto foreign goods.
And this bill is expected to increase the deficit by $500 billion
But then
next
again, I'm
year.
taking that at
And that's
face
according
value.
to the CBO.
I'm taking that at face value from the video. So I definitely have to do like more research as you should.
And
too.
again, to give you the full picture, the big money-saving promises of Doge, I mean, that's clearly dead. So this is from the official Doge website. You know, this is on the U.S. government's website. So Doge claims to have saved $190 billion.
And I'm just
You have to
analyzing
keep in
it
mind
for what it is as
that this
it's
is the
being
estimated
presented. I'll definitely have
savings
to
over
do
the
more
course of
research
the next
behind
10
it.
years because it includes
But
long-term
you can obviously
contracts
see that
and
it's very
leases. So
double-edged.
this is not the savings amounts for 2025.
The positives.
So essentially, if you take the word for
in
how
this
much they've
situation,
saved us,
but it's not just
which has already been proven to be incorrect, they have saved $19 billion for us this year.
Yeah, just remove that.
So $19 billion, that's what the federal government spends in 24 hours. Like literally, that's $7 trillion divided by 365 days. And the real numbers speak for themselves. So for fiscal year 2025, which is the light purple line, the federal government has already overspent by $1.36 trillion up until May. So that is a bigger deficit than fiscal year 2024, when it was at $1.2 trillion by May. So yes, the deficit in 2025 is worse this year compared to last year. So listen, it's my expectation that this big, beautiful bill is just going to make the fiscal situation worse. More borrowing, more debt, more money printing, and further loss of confidence in the US dollar. And this is just going to accelerate the de-dollarization process, which is the world walking away from the US dollar. And just so you know, everything that I'm saying is right in front of us. Like, this isn't a conspiracy theory. It's not imagination running wild. The dollar has been weakening, and it's had a terrible 2025, the worst year this year.
I mean, you could say that for like
in
a
the
lot
past
of
50
currencies,
years.
though, right? I'm pretty
Central
sure.
banks around the world are also loading up on gold, and they're using fewer dollars as a percentage of their reserves. Okay, so that's your latest update on the fiscal situation, and please subscribe because...
Yeah, definitely all go support. Very educational, but obviously to do conduct more research